Hello, and welcome back to How to Homeschool in High School, the podcast focused on encouraging and equipping you to homeschool through high school successfully. Hosted by a high school teen, my name is Nadine Loffer, and on today's episode number 47, we are finishing our interview with Mr. Brush from Unbound. So welcome to part 2 of this conversation with Mr. Brush. If you have not listened to part 1, I highly recommend going back to last week's episode to listen to that and to get more context for this interview. But let's just do a little review because it's been a minute. We're talking with Mr. Jonathan Brush, who is the president and CEO of Unbound. And from their website, Unbound's mission is to prepare students for life with project-based education. And they're most known for their post-high school programs called Ascend, which is just a college alternative program for students that looks really amazing. I've had such a fun time learning about this program. And today we're diving more into the programs Unbound offers, more than we did last week, including Ascend, which is the post-high school program, but also the ones that are for high school students, which I didn't know much about them, and they sound really exciting. And then we also go through the projects that some of the students at Unbound have done, the community, and the impact the students are making in their local communities and in the larger national community. And then we end with probably my favorite part of the discussion, which was around making choices about the future and trusting God with the outcome. Because, when we're in high school, we're all in this transition phase between childhood and adulthood, and it's kind of crazy, and we're making all these big decisions, and it can be very overwhelming and stressful. I am currently in a season between high school and college, and that's been crazy. This month of July is going to be my busiest month so far, and it can be very stressful. So leaning into God, trusting and reminding ourselves of his promises is so important, and we do dive into that later on in this interview. So without further ado, let's get into it. Could you break down for us the different programs that are in Unbound for high school students and then as well as college age students?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start at the low end and come up in terms of commitment. So we offer a course called Navigate that's actually included in some of our packages, but we sell it as a standalone product. And what that is that my personal struggle was always like, I wanted to do what God called me to do, but I thought that was something specific and I didn't know how to figure it out. I just had this total frustration. I told you I spent 20 years trying to figure out what it was I was supposed to do. And then I was doing this college stuff and I was meeting lots and lots of students who were saying the same thing. And so we developed Navigate to say it's not necessary for you to know all the answers. In fact, it's ridiculous at 18 that you would know all the answers. And if you think you do, you're probably headed for some problems. But if you ask the right questions, this can be a fun process. And so figuring out what you're passionate about, what you're doing in the world, is not about figuring out some magic formula or some secret. It's about asking questions and leaning into gaining skill and experience. And so Navigate's a fun kind of walk through where we teach students how to break down big decisions into small pieces, ask the right questions, and then learn from that whole process and have fun with it. So my goal is that people that take that are much less stressed out about figuring out what to do in life. So that's, if you want to just, it's an 8-week course. It starts anytime. And so that's kind of the first thing. Secondly, we do a bunch of high school programs, and that ranges from a complete coaching curriculum that integrates with a full coaching program that integrates with a full curriculum. So we use My Father's World curriculum for high school. And so if you're looking for an entire package, we do something called Declare, which is our coaches coaching students alongside parents through all of My Father's World's high school program. Or we do something called Equip, which is all the coaching, but integrates with any curriculum. So we won't help you figure out history, but we'll use history to teach the things we talked about. How do I use learning history to practice study skills and reflection skills and communication skills? And so all the things about how do I process information, learn information, we teach you those tools with whatever curriculum you're using. And so that's our high school programs, and we call that Equip. And then the senior year, we call it Explore, because we include some aspects of our Ascend program, which is our kind of flagship program, which is for students 16 on, and it is a complete post-high school program. And if you talk to our counselors, we will ask you, are you interested in a degree or not? And if you are, we can help you earn 90 credits of that degree that will eventually transfer into one of our partner institutions. If you're not, we'll have an entire program for you designed to launch you in the next phase of your life. And we'll ask what kinds of things you're doing. So we offer specialized tracks, which you can think of like as majors, and things like art and writing and videography, and soon digital media and entrepreneurship and business and all those kinds of things. And that program is designed to be online so that you get the content that way. And I want you to be able to remain embedded in your local community, which I want you to be able to take advantage of all the relationships you have in your local church and all those things. But I also think you can't get fully educated unless you have a community. So to do that, Ascend is built around 4 live events. So literally once a quarter, every couple of weeks, you'll get tickets and we'll fly you to different parts of the country. And then there'll be a week-long event and they're really intense. And by the time you're done, 2 things will happen. You'll have a great education with or without a college degree. But most importantly, you'll have this incredible community that you've been through all these intense experiences in all around the country, and lots of stories to go with that. And we tell students that if you stick with us for 3 years, and we design it so you can exit at any year, 1, 2, or 3. But if you stick with us for 3 years, regardless of whether a college degree is involved, we guarantee that you'll get a job within 6 months that pays as much as a college degree in your area, or we'll refund all 3 years of the tuition. And that's part of what I said about, we have to have that instant feedback where we have to make sure that we're responding exactly what students need. But out of all of that, it's the community that is the thing that everybody talks about, which is that we talked about the homeschool community. I take a little bit of license here and say this is like the creme de la creme of the homeschool community. These are people that really bought into the whole homeschool idea in many cases. And we're not exclusively homeschooled, but we have a lot of homeschool students. And it's the kind of people that are willing to think differently, who are really serious about their faith, and who really want to commit to kind of living life by being extraordinary at ordinary things and just really leaning into that. And I could just tell you so many stories about all the crazy networking and connection stuff that we get to do with all of the students that we've met through Unbound and that our students meet. And, almost every week, our alumni, we have 10,000 alumni, and they call me and say, I need to hire 4 accountants. I'll take anybody you send me. They don't have to interview. We'll start them tomorrow. And we've literally done that. We've called kids and said, hey, you need a job? Okay, just call them and they'll start you tomorrow. And all of a sudden they're up and running. So
That's amazing. Yeah. I there's a few things I wanted to touch upon, but since we're on community, that was one thing whenever I started getting into like college alternative programs, which was relatively recently, community was one thing I was wondering how because the college experience, everyone feels like they're going to miss out if they don't go to college. There's quite a few people in my community who have chosen not to, and that's the one thing that they always talk about. So obviously, Unbound is a different community, but it sounds like a wonderful community. But how is it that you encourage students to like get involved in their local community more?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I actually tell students you can't live here. Everybody loves Unbound and
Mm-hmm.
loves Unbound. So that's great. You come to be trained here, but your life happens at home.
Mm.
And so part of the whole program is structured around the heart of our program is not grades and GPAs. The heart of our program is projects.
Mm.
And so our first year students have to take an idea from an idea to reality. And our second year students have to take somebody else's idea from an idea to reality. And our third year students have to work in a team that takes an idea from an idea to reality. And that means that our students have to be doing real things in their communities. And often that's local community. Sometimes that involves some of the broader Unbound community, but almost always those kinds of projects involve local stuff. And if not, we have assignments through all of our courses that require students to be connected to local things. So there's some deliberate coaching. There's certainly a whole bend in all of our information towards that. But then there's some deliberate requirements that say, in order for you to complete our program, you have to have really good connections and really good relationships with people close by you as you complete these difficult assignments. And when I say difficult, I don't mean that they're impossible. I just mean they're challenging, right? I mean, I want you to, I don't care if you learn about business in the classroom. If you care about business, I want you to start a business, and I want you to, it doesn't have to be the next unicorn, it doesn't have to be a $500 million company. And I don't even care if you succeed. And I certainly don't want you to lose money, but I want you to be able to go and try it and say, oh, now I understand the things I'm learning in class and how they work here. To do that, you have to interact with people. To interact with people, you have to be part of a community. And those communities that they're involved in ultimately end up being the most important. And we tell internally, we say, the real point of Unbound is to train special forces for the local church. I want to create people who sit in the pews because I don't know how long Unbound lasts. I mean, I hope it lasts 100 years and maybe it lasts 1,000 years. I don't know, but it's not permanent. Maybe it lasts 5 years. So I want to always be attached to something that's permanent. And the only institution that I know is permanent. It's not the government. It's not my state. It's the local church. The church will persist. And so whatever we do, it has to benefit that because then everything we do is in the context of what will we do that will last And what will last is if we train people that can be integral parts of their local community through their local church. And so all of our thinking, all of our programs, all of our teaching, all of our classes, all sort of keep that firmly in front and say, will this enhance somebody's ability to be a better church member? Therefore, a better member of the local community, therefore a better person, therefore somebody who will make a difference and change the world.
That's really cool. I've been thinking a lot about the church's role in homeschooling, but then in like post high school, in that providing community outside of, for those of us who choose not to go to college, like that should be one of the centers of our lives because it is the center of our life. You know, Christ is the center. And I love that your projects, like, they benefit your local community in a way that what you do at college really doesn't. It's kind of
Yes.
this own isolated community that you'll leave and probably never come back to. Well, unless you're, you know, connected through alumni stuff. But this actually benefits your community that you've grown up in. Maybe not, but the community that you're in now,
Yes.
and that's a really powerful thing too.
And you will always, and I'm a little cautious about when we say this because I don't want to imply that there's something wrong or morally off about this, right? I mean, some
Hmm.
people are called to grow up in one place and they go away to school or something else, and they're called to another place, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's often tremendously things that are right about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jesus
Hmm.
did not end up in his hometown, right? I mean, he ended up in Bethlehem and Nazareth and all these different places, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not at all implying that that's wrong. What I want to challenge there sometimes is this idea that the only way to progress is to go away. And so often when you do that, you may be gaining a lot, and that's fine, but you're also sacrificing, right? You're sacrificing close relationships with family. You're sacrificing relationships you build a long time. You're sacrificing your connection with local churches you might build up over years. And so I want to make sure that people have the option, not because I'm saying one is better than the other. I just would like to make the default the one that stays connected with your local community. And then if you're called out of that, by all means, go with blessing, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong there, but I think so often people feel like I don't have opportunities unless I leave. And I want to say, look, you'd have opportunities if you stayed here, leveraged all these relationships you had, and let me give you a national network. You know, I literally have students in all over the country. And so you can kind of have both. And so now I was just at a wedding a couple weeks ago in South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It's not the center of the universe, right? There were 70 people there from Unbound. You know, that it was a full third of the wedding, and they came from both coasts and the middle. And you know, the airport runs were a whole logistical nightmare, and some of us got rerouted and had to get picked up at airports 3 states away and all this kind of stuff because we basically were on all the flights and things like that. And like, you know, nobody paid them to come. Like, I paid my own penny to be there, everybody else paid to be there. And we laugh because I do 4 or 5 of those weddings a year like that, and there's that kind of level of participation. And so, like, you're in your local community, in a local community where 70 of your friends will come for your big celebration, you know, but also you'll go to theirs. And so you get a kind of cake and eat it too type of thing. So
Yeah. Providing another option and also calling back the importance of being connected to your community and your church, I think is a really, really important mission. Um, and also, just to give listeners some examples, what are some of the projects that some of your students have done?
yeah, it's really fun because it's just this huge range. I mean, some of them are like personal projects, like people will run marathons and things like that.
Wow.
Recently, we had somebody who wrote an illustrated children's book, which I thought was really cool. And I think it's a
Hmm.
really cool book too. We've had folks write and direct plays. We've had several books. We've had people start podcasts. We had somebody completely rebuild and restore a car, and this person had never really done anything mechanical before. And so they bought a car and kind of learned how to do all those things. But then we had somebody else who was interested in cars who bought a flip vehicle and bought it and fixed it up and then tried to flip it, you know, and make some money off of it.
Yeah.
We had somebody organize a big masquerade ball to raise money for an organization that fights human trafficking. And that organization, before their top fundraiser, was like $3,000, and this student was able to raise $55,000.
Wow.
And so it was just really fun to see that kind of gap. We had somebody teach a course on etiquette. He was really annoyed by how people didn't know what utensil to use and stuff like that. So he developed a whole curriculum and then recruited all these people and then had a really fancy dinner and taught everybody how to do it. We do this whole showcase at the end of every year where every one of our students presents their projects. It's like 3 weeks of watching, 2 weeks of watching all these students do these things.
Wow.
And it's
Yeah.
always just the breadth of it is super exciting to me to see all the different things happening in all these different communities that touches a lot of lives and stretches people. And then we had one person this year who she started out with one thing and it didn't work. And she switched to another and it didn't work. And she switched to that and it didn't work. And so she did this whole set of projects and she's like, so the bad news is none of my ideas work. The good news is really educated, right? Like I've learned so much, and like I know all these things, and I've got an idea for the next one. And my bet is the next one goes out of the park, right? I mean, like I think it's got to be a home run. But I think that's cool too. I mean, that's not everything succeeds, and so sometimes it's the failing that actually teaches as well. And that's she got full credit for a project. It's not about that you ace your project; it's that you try it and do it to the best of your ability, and then you evaluate what you learn from it. And she qualified for that immensely.
Yeah, there's so much you can learn from the failures that you have, even more sometimes from the successes.
Yes.
Even doing this podcast, I've learned a lot more from the episodes that haven't worked out, or the interviews that were a little bit more rocky than the ones that have gone great and were easy. So there's so much value in failure, and being able to still get credit even when it doesn't work out exactly how you thought it was going to is also a pretty cool thing. And then also I was thinking about the different projects that you have. Even in my community, I'm part of this organization called American Heritage Girls. It's a scouting group, and they have this big project at the end of all of the years.
Yeah, it's kind of like an old Eagle Scout project. I mean,
yeah,
right.
So, but it's really cool to watch my friends do it and see the different, like they're so different and they're so unique, but they have such an impact in different people's lives. It's cool to see young people make that impact in the world. I always assumed when I was younger, at least, that I had to wait till I was out of college to really start making an impact in the world. But then programs like this really do show you that it doesn't, like the verse in Timothy. I forget, First Timothy or Second Timothy. Yeah,
don't
like
anybody look down on you because you're young. But
exactly.
Example for the believers in faith and love and purity, I think is right.
Yeah. It doesn't really. That doesn't necessarily matter. You can really make an impact in your community.
I might even add to that and say not just that, but to not despise the scale. So one of the core things we teach students in Unbound is that I say, I can teach you how to change the world. I can teach you right now, but be careful because once I tell you, you're on the hook to do so. And the way to do that is that you can change the world by committing to be extraordinary at ordinary things. And so it's you may do really. And so I used to tell that story about the masquerade ball kind of as my first project, because it's really cool. And it was really, and the person did it was amazing and put in so much work. But I wanted to be careful with that because it's not like that was the standard for what was really successful. That was a fun one because it took off and got really big, right? But honestly, if you've never run a marathon before and it changed your entire ability to discipline yourself and do hard things and stuff like that, you have no idea what it's going to take you in terms of how you guys can help you to use those strengths to serve in the future. Not running necessarily, but what you learn from the process. And so that ability to be, no matter what your age, if you're extraordinary at the ordinary things in front of you right now, what we tell students is that you will likely find that the extraordinary becomes ordinary, right? I mean, and that's not that it means like, oh, start here, then you get big and famous and powerful. No. I mean that you'll find that even just ordinary things have extraordinary meaning. And I think that's the way the kingdom works, right? It's these small things that you don't think are a big deal. And I think a lot of us are going to get to heaven and go, this big thing I worked on the whole time, and God's like, I don't really care about that. But the way you treated your sister, the way you treated your spouse, the way you took care of your neighbor, that's the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, our impacts on other people, our daily interactions with people, they have very large impacts on sometimes on their futures and our futures. So it's important to not neglect the small things in pursuit of the big things, for sure. So to finish off, I wanted to ask for some advice you'd give for parents and students. A lot of them are my listeners who are thinking about what they should do after high school. How should they navigate like this kind of crazy higher education world that we're in now?
So I'd first just say, take a deep breath and smile, because there's all kinds of problems in the world, but there always is, right? I mean, and you were born in this time and place to take care of these problems, right? So this isn't, you got stuck with a bad deal. You got stuck with a great deal in so many ways. And then there's also challenges, just like there has always been in history. And one of the cool things is that there's never been a time when there's been more options for different higher education things. And that kind of makes it hard because you got to navigate through it, but also what a wealth, right? And so I think it starts with being deliberate, which is just take a moment to sort of decide where you actually are and where you think you want to go. And some people say, I really want to be X. Okay, great. Then that's fairly easy. It dictates where you go. I really want to be an engineer. You're going to have to go to traditional college, right? That's fine. Most people say, I'm not sure. And the difference before is people say, I'm not sure, then they go to college to figure it out. That's a really expensive way to figure things out now. And so I'd say, if you're not sure, then what is it you want? You might say, I want to get a few credits, or I want to be part of a community and I want to figure some things out, or I want to earn money or something like that. All of those dictate some different types of patterns. And so my challenge would be not to just do it the way everybody's always done it before, to be a little bit deliberate and to push that a little bit, because then there's all kinds of options and it's easy to recalibrate. So, I want to earn some money. So I go to work for Chick-fil-A for a year and I'm like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And now I really know I want to do business. Okay, well, now you've got a direction. And it's really easy just 1 year late to get started and earn a business degree or go through something like Unbound where you may not need a degree to get that business experience, having taken all those things you learned from working for a year, right? So people have this idea that if I make the wrong decision at 18, I'm in the ditch. And that's just simply not true. Unless you made the wrong decision and borrowed $200,000 to do it, right? Yeah. So be a little cautious on how much money you have to borrow, and beyond that, be aware there's all kinds of options. And then not so much even as a plug for Unbound, but this is kind of what we do. So you don't even have to be interested in us. Call us. We'll be happy to tell you what we know. It's free, and we don't expect you to do Unbound, right? In fact, if you tell me you want to be an engineer, I won't let you do Unbound for 3 years because it would be a bad deal, right? And so we publish a lot of resources, and you can check out our podcasts and blogs and all that kind of stuff. But you can also just call us or call me, and I'll be happy to. I spend a couple hours on the phone every week with people that will never enroll in the program, but that's what we do, and that's what we want to share. So if that's helpful, feel free to do that. But mostly, realize that you've got a wealth of opportunities. Just take a little time to think it through. Don't borrow a lot of money at first until you know what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then don't be afraid to go down something and then change your mind. That's part of, everybody does that between the ages of 18 and death.
Yes.
They try things to change their mind, have to change it and go back. So.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the people believing that if they make a wrong decision at 18, it totally messes everything up. That was me last year in junior year.
That was me too.
I was like, if I don't make the right decision, then I'm going to be messing up my whole life. Right. And so it's very good to hear that, because it is true. You'll do that forever. I mean, my parents, they're still thinking about new things to do and changing their course. And, they're not 18 anymore, and so they're still doing it. And so it's supposed to be a lifelong thing. I mean, God's always leading us in different directions. So being able to take a breath and just think through all the options you have is very important, I think, for us to hear now.
And not just take a breath, which is true. I agree with you. But I would say take a breath and enjoy it. The reality is the rest of your life is going to be like this. So you could be stressed out the rest of your life. Or you could be like, I wonder what's next, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you don't make wise decisions, and that there's some decisions you make that can really have some consequences. I'm not belittling any of that stuff. But, this should be 18 on. Is a time of discovery. There's a lot of wow, I didn't see that coming. And by the way, when you get to 40, it's fun too, because you're like, whoa, I saw that coming. That's cool too in a different way.
Yeah.
But, this ability to kind of sit back and go, no, I don't need to know it all. And this is, I wonder what happens here. I wonder what happens here. I wonder what happens here. That kind of level of excitement and curiosity can be really rich. And you can look at that and go, I just don't know what's going on. Or you can look at that and be like, I can't see what's going to be next. This will be fun, right? And the latter is way more fun, to have that attitude.
Yeah, because that's
a lot of what we teach and navigate. If that course I was talking about is just to kind of say, hey, there's a couple questions if you ask, we'll put you on the right course to make wise decisions. So make sure you ask those questions and then go for it. Lean in and live and try and gain some skill and experiences and see what happens. So.
Yeah. It's going to be the rest of your life. So you might as well have fun with it and not be stressed out about it all the time. And but I think also with the 18 decision, I think it's, at least for me, it's the first big decision that I really make on my own, that my parents are making for me, that really impacts my life.
Yes.
And so thinking about it that way is just the first step. And sometimes if I feel like if I take a wrong first step, it's gonna obviously mess something up. But ultimately, I think, I don't remember where I heard this, but it's the a reflection on the story of Jonah. No matter what you do, God will always get you back on where he wants you to go. So even if you can't really mess up his plan, he will always prevail. So that's kind of reassuring as well. That was something I was thinking about recently. He will guide me no matter what. Even if I end up doing something different than what I thought, I don't have all the answers right now. Anyway, well, I never will.
That's certainly true if you're doing something different, meaning they're all good things, but you just went a slightly different direction. Right?
That's true.
You'll definitely build on that. Maybe you'll become a professional podcaster and have a huge show, and maybe you don't spend the rest of your life behind the mic, but I will guarantee you that you will take skills from this that will impact everything you do going forward, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and I'm not advocating you make dumb decisions. Also, we follow a God who redeems pain too.
Mm-hmm.
So, at some level, we're all going to make stupid decisions, or we're going to experience tragedy, or likely both, right?
Yeah.
And even in those cases, the miracle, the astounding part of the gospel here is that you could make all the wrong decisions, even terribly wrong decisions, and God is able to redeem that pain. Now, that's not the way he recommends, and some of that's going to carry consequences that you may have to always deal with, right? So I'm not advocating that, but I'm also saying that, even on the extreme end, you can mess up in some pretty big ways and find that God is a God who redeems that as well. So, even if you look at it like, I'm not planning on messing up here, I'm just trying to decide if I should go here or go here, and, what do you think? But yeah, but even if you're talking about messing up, God redeems that too. So how much more so would God help you if you, in good faith, say, Lord, I'm going to pick this. And, God may gently say, I need you back here. But, it's not likely to ruin your life. So.
Yeah. Our pastor from Florida, we used to live in Florida, he said, pray, guess, and go. Like sometimes we just get stuck in the pray section. Yeah. I love that. My dad quotes it to me all the time because I'm more of the person that likes to overthink and like stay in that I don't know what to do. He's like, sometimes you just got to go for it and see what happens on
That's
the other
excellent.
side. So
pray, guess, and go. I like it.
Well, just to close it out, you mentioned a few ways people can get in contact with more information. Is there any other?
Well, the big one is beunbound.us. So
Okay.
it's beunbound.us. And you can find everything there. And look, we're not so big that if you would contact anybody and say, I want to talk to so-and-so, we'll find them for you. So you can do that. If you look for Be Unbound on all the social media platforms, so YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, you can find us there. And so if you want to learn about us, that's great. And then the only social media I really pay much attention to personally is Instagram. So I'm on Instagram at, I think, Jonathan L. Brush or something like that. But you can probably search that and search my name and you'll recognize me from there. And so if you want to keep up that way, it's fine. And again, I'm more than welcome to answer questions directly if people want to contact me through any of those places. Or if you talk to any Unbound student, they should have my number because we publish it frequently to our students. And I tell people I've been called at every hour of the day and night. And so I just turn my phone off when I don't want to talk to people. And so you can call me anytime you want because I'll get the message whenever I feel like it. So.
That's awesome. And then your podcast as well, which I really love listening to, what is it called?
It's the Be Unbound podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I should have remembered that one. I said all the social media platforms, but yes, you can find us on all the podcast platforms at Be Unbound. Just looking for that. And you can hear David and I there, and we have a lot of fun. So, in fact, I'm thinking of a future guest who once was from Florida and now lives in Pennsylvania that we should probably have on. So.
Well, that would be really fun. I would enjoy that. So I guess that's about it. Question-wise, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And I really enjoyed talking with you. And I'm sure my audience will benefit greatly from hearing what you had to say. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor, and appreciate it very much.
Thank you guys so much for listening to that episode. And big shout out to Mr. Rush and the team at Unbound for making this interview possible. I absolutely loved learning more about their program. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I got a lot of wonderful feedback from the last episode. A lot of people looking forward to this one. So I think it was a great ending for a great conversation. So looking back over this interview and listening to it again, there were a few things I wanted to touch upon and clarify. The first one was when I was talking about the impact on community that we make as young adults. And I was talking about the comparison between the community impact that Unbound has versus a community impact that college has. And I kind of didn't give college the credit I think it deserves because it does. College students and colleges make an impact on the community around them. What's different and what I was calling out was Unbound students, they are mostly in their community they grew up in, making an impact with the people that have poured so much life into them since they were young. That's very different than a college community impact on the world around them, which you can do service projects. I've seen that done, especially at the college I'm going to now. They do a bunch of community projects, they do service, and that does definitely make an impact. So it's not like going to college doesn't make an impact on the community. It's just sometimes, you graduate, you get a job, and then you start making an impact in the world like that way. It's just different, and sometimes it's a little bit more delayed than the impact, say, a project-based education program like Unbound. The impact they make is a little bit sooner and a little bit more direct in the community that they grew up in. So that's the comparison I was trying to make. I was not trying to say that college students don't make an impact on their community. It's just sometimes we're a little more removed, I think, because the college campus community is a thing in the larger community of wherever your college is. So it's just different, and it doesn't mean it's wrong, either one of them. So I wanted to clarify that. And then the second thing I just wanted to say was, we talked, and I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that was my favorite part of the conversation, which was making decisions about the future. And I just wanted to say that no matter what you're doing, if you're making a decision on whether or not to homeschool or where you're going to go to college, I mean, I just want you all to know that you're not alone in making those big decisions, and you're not alone in struggling with the hardness of making those big decisions. But I think the main takeaway, at least I got from this conversation, was a reminder of that saying my pastor used to say all the time, pray, guess, go. You know, sometimes you just have to go for it. And even if it's not necessarily turns out exactly the way you wanted it to, the Lord is ultimately in charge, and he will direct your path no matter what. So that is a very reassuring thought that I have been repeating to myself over the past few weeks and months. And I wanted to restate it here just for you guys again, to remember we are not alone. And this decision, though it seems really, really big, is just one of many. And you're held in God's hands and his plans, and you can trust that. So I think that wraps up everything from this interview. Besides, go check out Unbound's podcast, their website. I've linked them in the show notes. Their Instagram page has been really fun to follow recently because they've been having a lot of students go on the page and explain different things and talk about their own experiences. So I highly recommend you go check their social media platforms as well. So for next week, we're going to be talking with a homeschool student from France, which is so exciting because it's my first time I'm doing an interview outside of the United States. I'm super excited about that. And she's from France, and she is an online student with a program called Bridgeway. And we're going to talk about that program as well as her experience as a homeschooler and just her story, which is really fascinating and wonderful. And I loved talking with her. I know you guys will enjoy listening to that interview. So that's something to look forward to next week. Yeah, so that's it for you guys today. If you enjoy the show, make sure to follow it on your podcasting platform so you never miss a new episode, and continue to stay fearlessly different.